Hello and welcome to the Cardboard Dungeons X-Wing ship reviews. In this video I am looking at the TIE Striker. This of course is the sole Imperial ship that we got out of Rogue One for X-Wing. It is a primarily atmospheric starfighter, however it is capable of spaceflight, and so we have it joining our game of starfighter combat. Now the neat thing about the TIE Striker is that it has a sort of built-in maneuver ability that we're going to talk about right up front, even before we get into the maneuver dial, because everything that we talk about with this ship, we have to think about it with this upgrade. So first, let's take a quick look at the ship itself. So this ship kind of looks like an elongated TIE pod between two really long, almost TIE Interceptor style, like half wings. So like half of a TIE Interceptor sort of a wing. And these wings on this model actually move up and down a little bit. So you can move them around as you see fit during the game to make it do some neat looking things, like it's tilted or whatever. But it's a cool looking ship. I like it. The design of it is neat. So let's get into what we can expect out of this ship gameplay wise. So like I said, first of all, we're going to take a look at one of only 3 upgrade cards that come with this expansion pack. This is the TIE Striker only title, Adaptive Ailerons. It is free, so you can put it on any TIE Striker that you run without any squad point cost. And it says immediately before you reveal your dial, if you are not stressed, you must execute a white speed 1 bank or straight maneuver. So essentially it gives you a free boost. It's not a boost action, but it does the same thing, accomplishes the same thing. So you could put engine upgrade on these ships and boost after your maneuver to kind of get a double boost, sort of. You know, in X-Wing you can't do the same action twice, but it's not a boost action, so you could essentially be making 2 boosts in 1 round. It's also not optional. You have to do it as long as you're not stressed. So what this does is it gives the TIE Striker a huge maneuver and speed and positioning advantage to you, and it makes it extremely hard for your opponent to predict where it's going to be going. And we'll see at least one of the pilots has a way to kind of play around with it even further. So extremely interesting, and the reason I'm talking about this up front is because now we're going to take a look at the maneuver dial, and you can see that this is a TIE class ship. It only goes up to speed 3, and now we know why, because of course it's not really going speed 3. If you put that title on it, it's going to be doing a speed 1 maneuver before up to speed 3, which essentially, if you do a speed 1 straight with your adaptive ailerons and then a speed 3 straight, that's the same as moving speed 5 straight. So this ship is every bit as fast as your standard TIE Fighter class ships, the ones that can go speed 4 and speed 5. It just doesn't look it from this maneuver dial. So taking a closer look, we've got every speed 1 normal maneuver, every speed 2 normal maneuver, and everything but the turns at speed 3. There's a line of green down the middle on the straights, and then also the speed 1 bank, so not a ton of green on the dial. But then it also has repositioning for the turnaround. It's got the Segnor's loops at speed 2 and also a speed 2 K-turn. So all kinds of maneuver options for this ship. Extremely slippery in a firefight, hard to predict, as I said. Now, moving on to the stat line. TIE Strikers have attack value of 3, only 2 agility, which kind of reflects their atmospheric combat prowess. You would think maybe for space combat they'd be a little more agile, but whatever. We're going to see an upgrade with this expansion that affects that as well. 4 hull and no shield, so a little bit better than a TIE Fighter, TIE Interceptor. It can take 1 additional hit. On the action bar, we have focus, barrel roll, and evade. Pretty standard stuff for a TIE class ship as well. And down on the upgrade bar, TIE Strikers have empty upgrade bars. So a couple of the pilots we'll see will be able to take elite upgrades, and of course you can put the title and you can put a modification on these ships, but there are no other icons on the upgrade bar, so not super customizable. They're kind of locked in to the upgrades you're going to want to take. as far as the title and the modification go, as we're going to see. So jumping to the top pilot for the TIE Striker, it is Duchess. Pilot skill of 8, 23 points, can take an elite upgrade, and her ability says, while you have the Adaptive Ailerons upgrade card equipped, you may choose to ignore its card ability. So she gives you greater flexibility, takes away the requirement to make that speed 1 maneuver before revealing your dial, and lets you choose if you want to do it or not. So you could get into a situation where it's beneficial to you not to make that maneuver, but you still want the Adaptive Ailerons for most of your maneuvers or most of the match. She lets you sort of switch it on and off, which is a cool ability. And of course, if you're going to fly Duchess, you pretty much have to take the title. So why wouldn't you for her, right? Next up, we have Pir Sabak. Pilot skill of 6, 22 points, also can take an elite upgrade. When attacking, if you have 1 or fewer damage cards, roll an additional attack die. So that's really cool. I like the name of this pilot. Sabak, of course, is the famous card/gambling game of the Star Wars universe, the game that Han Solo and Lando Calrissian were playing when the Millennium Falcon changed hands between them. And his ability is a gamble. If you have 2 or more damage on you, it just turns off and the ability goes away for the rest of the match. So as long as you can keep him relatively healthy, you get an additional attack die. And of course, these ships have 3 attack value as a base, so this guy can pump out some damage. All right, next up, our third and last unique pilot for the TIE Striker is Countdown. Pilot skill of 5 and costing 20 points. When defending, if you are not stressed, during the compare results step, you may suffer 1 damage and cancel all dice results. If you do, receive a stress token. So basically once per combat, because he's going to have stress after he does this, so he can't do it again, because that's a requirement to not be stressed. If he takes a big hit, a fatal hit, or a bunch of damage, really anything more than 1 damage, you can just cancel it all, just take a single damage, and a stress token, and move on. So if you're good at positioning, if you can fly him well, if you can get him in the position where he's only going to take, no enemy attacks or 1 enemy attack total, I mean, you can guarantee that he is going to survive at least 3 enemy attacks, at least. So it's a nice ability for a ship with 4 hull and nothing else to be able to guarantee your survival, especially in the game now where 4 and 5 dice attacks are becoming more and more common. Those big missile alpha strikes, he can absorb a harpoon missile or a cruise missile, take full damage, which is pretty common with all of the modification and stuff you can do in guidance chips and stuff like that. He could just take a 5-hit cruise missile attack and just say, nope, 1 hit, and keep flying. An attack that would have killed his ship and a lot of other ships with low health in the game. He can shrug it off. So it's a cool ability. You have to be able to fly well. If your opponent really wants to erase Countdown from the board, he can get 2 or 3 guns on him, and you can use the ability once, but then unless you have some way to strip stress away outside of the activation phase, he's going to eat the other attacks if you roll defense dice poorly. And he could easily be destroyed, in 1 round of combat, even with his ability. So you got to be careful with him, but I do like the ability. I like all 3 of the pilots for this ship. I think they're all useful, all very cool abilities. Now, so good job on the pilot design. A lot of times in these expansions, there's like 1 pilot that you really like, and the other ones are kind of like, whatever. I'll probably never play them. They did a good job designing the pilots. All right, now we've got 3 non-unique pilots to go through. We've got the Black Squadron Scout, pilot skill of 4, 20 points, and can also take an elite upgrade. So that's kind of interesting. 1 less pilot skill than Countdown. No pilot ability, of course. Can take an elite upgrade, though, where Countdown cannot. Same point cost. So kind of interesting there. Then we have the Scarif Defender, pilot skill of 3, 18 points. And finally, the Imperial Trainee, pilot skill of 1, 17 points. All right, now moving on to the other 2 upgrades. We already talked, of course, about the title. Swarm Leader is one that is a unique elite. It is new. This is the only way to get it in the game currently. It has a point cost of 3, and it says when performing a primary weapon attack, Choose up to 2 other friendly ships that have the defender inside their firing arcs at range 1 to 3. Remove 1 evade token from each chosen ship to roll an additional attack die for each token removed. So essentially, you have 2 wingmen also with your target within their range and arc, and they have to have evade tokens. They can strip their evade tokens off to give you an additional die for each of them, up to 2 of them. So you can add +2 attack dice. You can make a really big attack. Depending on who you have Swarm Leader on, you can roll easily 5 or possibly even 6 attack dice on your primary weapon attack, depending on your range and what you're shooting at. However, you do have to do some pretty careful setup. You have to maneuver your ships well to have everybody in the arcs as necessary. Also to have evade tokens, and then to use the evade tokens, which means, of course, they won't be able to use those tokens for their defensive purpose, possibly leaving those ships vulnerable to attack. So there's a big trade-off for this, but if you can land a huge attack with your weapon fully modified dice, it can definitely turn the tide of a battle. All right, and finally we have a modification. It is tie only, which means, of course, you can put this on any tie class ship, any ship with tie in its name. And it costs 2 points, lightweight frame. When defending, after rolling defense dice, if there are more attack dice than defense dice, roll an additional defense die. You cannot equip this card if your agility value is 3 or higher. So think about all the tie class ships in the game. There's not that many of them that have agility value of 2 or 1. But there's a few. There's this ship, there's the Special Forces tie, the tie bomber, the tie Punisher. It increases their defense capability significantly, I think. And it is important to note that the wording of this is kind of odd. You don't roll all of your defense dice together. You make a normal defense roll, and then after you roll the dice, you look and see, did they roll more attack dice than I just rolled, and you roll an additional 1 in. Now this is important, specifically for timing with Palpatine, because his ability, you have to declare now after the errata to it. You have to declare before you roll dice, so you can't use his ability on your defense roll as a whole now if you're using the lightweight frame. You have to either declare it when you roll your initial defense roll of 1 or 2 dice, or you declare it before you roll in the extra die for lightweight frame. And there might be some other timing reasons for doing it this way too, but if you're playing in a tournament setting, you know, casual games and stuff, a lot of people probably won't care if you roll the extra die, you roll them all together or whatever, because you know there's going to be more attack dice. But technically, you're supposed to roll that single die separately after all the dice have been rolled. Okay, so that is your TIE Striker expansion pack. It's a pretty small expansion, one of the smaller expansions we've had in quite a while in X-Wing. But there's a lot of good stuff here. I like the ship a lot. It is very cool. Has some pretty high survivability, especially with the lightweight frame and the evade action that it can take, and some of the pilot abilities that keep it going, plus the adaptive ailerons that just let it get around like no other ship really can do in the game. You basically essentially are getting that free boost action, and then you get your regular action as well. So very cool ship, lots of stuff you can do with it, relatively inexpensive. It is a little more expensive than your standard TIE Fighter and TIE Interceptor, but not by a whole lot. So it fits into a nice spot in the Imperial pantheon of TIE class ships in what it can do. And it does have some good attack power with an attack of 3, so it is a threat on the table, and especially with that maneuverability that it can do. So I'm really happy with this ship, and I know it has been making a splash in competitive play. It does show up in Imperial lists from time to time, even up to 3 of them in a list together. Because they're so inexpensive, you still have room for something else. Very, very nice ship. Well done to the Fantasy Flight designers, as I said, on those pilot abilities. All very interesting and useful, and I like this one a lot. All right, as always, thanks for watching the Cardboard Dungeon. I'll see you next time.